Hey everyone, thanks for dropping by. Bronze Dragon here. Well, we are locked and loaded. I've got a big one for you today. I got a chance to sit down and talk with the King of Queens, the President of the United States, and the overall landholding leader within Atlas Earth. So get ready for a long one. It was quite a discussion that is chock full of answers to all the popular questions that Atlas Earth players have of him. But first, I want to mention that even though he has clearly spent a lot of money on this platform, in no way should this be considered investment advice. I am not an investment advisor. Please do your own homework and research before putting money into any platform. With that said, let's dive right in and see how the King of Queens got to where he is today in Atlas Earth. Hey, everybody. Thanks for dropping by. Bronze Dragon here. Well, if you've been playing Atlas Earth for a little while, or even if you're brand new and you've checked out the leaderboards, you know exactly who we're talking to today. It is the King of the Queens. He is the President of the United States and the leader overall in Atlas Earth as far as parcels owned. Thanks for dropping by, King.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure here, Bronze, and excited to finally make this happen.
It's been in the planning stage for quite a while.
That indeed. Yeah. Not to
So,
mention, yeah, last night was quite the event for us New Yorkers here. Of course, the win for the Knicks, and
mhm.
unfortunately not for the Spurs, but my heart is in both places here. So, but what a great weekend too.
Yeah, I've been hearing all the Knicks fans rallying. I live up in the Philly area, so a lot of Knicks fans up here.
Very cool.
Okay, so first of all, I want to say thanks for agreeing to do this interview. A lot of people have been asking about this over time, and taken a little time to set up. But now that we're here, let's start a level playing field here and kind of dig in. There was a time before you were sitting on top of the world as you are now here in Atlas Earth. When did you first become aware of Atlas Earth? And what was your actual decision making process when you looked at it and said, okay, I'm diving into this? Did you start
Yeah.
playing with a strict formal strategy right out of the gate, or did you start slow at first and let things develop over time?
It's a good question. So I actually so I was in New York at the time. I saw the one of the video ads for on Facebook. This was back in June 2024. And mind you, I'm coming up on 2 years, my 2 year anniversary here in just a few days. So this was like June 20th or something like that, which was kind of cool. But yeah, basically it was the Facebook ad with the about getting revenge against your landlord, and you could buy the property virtually. And I thought it was playful. I thought it was fun. So I mean, it immediately caught my attention because it stands out. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's we're all used to the feed on Facebook or IG or so, and but this was what I thought was really cool. So I mean, my whole background here, I mean, I work in advertising and marketing. It was something that, even professionally I've thought, oh, this is pretty cool. Like I've always had an interest in geography. I'm big on Web3 and crypto and fintech platforms. And we do that, as a business too, since I run an ad agency
Okay.
professionally. So, yeah, so I mean, I just thought, look, it's the perfect mix of all those things. I thought, well, gee, this has so much potential to it. This is something that I really want to study. I'd like to get to know this more. And in our industry, in digital marketing and mobile app marketing, I thought, okay, maybe there are opportunities there. Maybe there's some way, for brands or so to be featured on the app or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, maybe there's a professional interest in the beginning, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to sign up for this personally. Let me play it. Let me see, how I like it. Get to know the app. Be a customer of it, and then decide, is this something, is there an opportunity maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
So that was what got me in there. It was pretty slow. I mean, in the beginning, I wasn't the king of queens. I was Cujo the bear. I had a totally different profile and all that. But funny enough, you know, I started while I was living with my girlfriend in Queens, so hence the location and whatnot.
Mhm.
And so, I'm just sitting there and I'm on the app and I'm buying parcels and I just thought it was super interesting. So in the beginning, it was more of like, okay, what could I do here, professionally? Could I get, a brand like ADT who I work with? Could I get
Mhm.
ADT to sponsor, an SRB, for example? Which, there is space in the app, for, potential, ads like that, I think.
Yeah.
And so I was really eager. I thought, gee, it's super engaging. It's not intrusive. Yes, it's monetized through ad revenue and so, but they keep you coming back. You're back every
Mhm.
day. You're boosting. Um, and so I definitely learned to appreciate everything they've built. I mean, it's an awesome platform, and I even think today, I mean, it's still in its infancy. This will continue to grow, and I have some insights here and things, my observations, that show they're not stopping, they're not slowing down.
Mhm.
Atlas Earth is very strong and it's continuing to grow here. um, but something that was also interesting to me too was that it's GPS based, and
Mhm.
before this, I was really big on the Coin app which is XYO's crypto proof of location platform.
Okay.
So I saw that, okay, it works off the same um, geometry map platform, where in Coin App you're being compensated for every 100 by 100 plot that you move across as proof of location, as a kind of
Okay.
alternative form of mining. But Atlas Earth was all about owning that same plot. So it was like, okay, I had one app open and then I had Atlas Earth open, and I'm like, hey, this is cool. Maybe I can do this while I'm on the go, and kind of get the best of both worlds. So that seemed really interesting to me. You know, but with how this all happened with Queens, the interest work-wise, professional-wise, really fell to the wayside, and that was because the thing is so addicting here. So I
Yeah.
saw Queens was like, at 2,600 parcels. At the time, it was the Duke of New York, really awesome guy named Rock. We're actually kind of friends off platform. Another kind of awesome benefit here, you get to know everybody on the platform.
Mhm.
And I thought, okay, what's 2,600 parcels? I can do that. I was already, what, 50, 100, 150. And and so thus began like the first kind of steps. I bought the first pack, like $5 pack. I'm like, okay, that went by quickly. Then it goes to, $100, and I'm like,
Wow.
I'm going through the Apple App Store,
Mhm.
and or sorry, the Atlas Bucks tab, and of course
Mhm.
it processes it through Apple App Store. Um, and so I just started buying, pack after pack. And then, of course, we've discovered the web interface for
Yeah.
Webpacks. And so, I mean, one thing led to another, and here I am finding myself in downtown Flushing, at the parking lot in Queens, in my car, trying to, plot, to conquest the whole area of Queens. And I'm thinking, okay, this is cool. I'm gonna take down Rock. I'm gonna be the mayor of Queens or so. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, as you can guess, I mean, it went by quickly. And it was kind of addicting like that. And I thought, okay, well, I need to change up the name. I can't just be Cujo the bear. Like, so I just, as a play on like on the location, and and honestly, I just thought it was funny that the kind of show kind of came into the question. I responded to the Duke of New York with the King of Queens, which just kind of came
Mhm.
naturally. I had
Yeah.
never seen one episode of the series.
Mhm.
So it was kind of a running joke with my ex at the time. She's like, "Look, you can't be the king of queens and not ever have seen this." She's like, "You're gonna sit down and watch this." you know. But no, I got to know Rock, and this is one thing I'd emphasize. Like, you have a lot of gentlemen's agreements that happen behind the scenes with the app. And The Rock is such an awesome guy. He's a teacher in the New York school system, and I respect the fact he's really worked hard to have that 5-6 thousand parcel kind of stake in Brooklyn. So I
Hmm.
said, hey, I'm going to be the king of Queens, and you've got Brooklyn, and that's I'll honor that virtual handshake and all. So that
That's
was kind of
cool.
nice. Definitely, yeah, definitely.
So
But yeah, let me.
you had mentioned buying Atlas Bucks through the app. How long did it take you to learn that you could go onto the website and save money doing it and have access? And that kind of dovetails into the question of when Manning debuted the large packs, the 50 and $100,000 packs. How long did it take you to learn about saving a little bit of money on the website or getting more for your money, and then indulging in the larger packs?
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that's a good question. It's funny because when I took over Queens, like poor Rock, like he actually reached out to Manning and he's like, "Oh my God, like this guy's like putting an impossible amount of parcels down on Queens. Like, is he fake? Is this like some spoofer or something like that?" And so Manning had basically said, "No, no, 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 no. Like this is a real guy." And like Manning had like established contact and all that. But The Rock wanted to talk to me. So this is before the whole gentleman's agreement happened. So
Hmm.
at that point, I got an email from Manning. He said, "Oh, look, you should join the Discord. There's a good, group of folks there. Oh, and by the way, the guy who used to have Queens, he was hoping to chat with you if you're open to it." So, that started a first conversation with Manning, but also meeting, Rock. And then he also said, "Look, you don't need to buy packs on through the app. You should go through the web store or the web
Hmm.
interface. It's a lot faster. You can get, there's a lot more volume there." Because I bought something like, I don't know, 15 of the 100 packs or whatever it was. It was a dumb amount, and a lot very repetitive. And I thought, okay, this is, you know how do you scale this more,
Yeah.
doing all these individually. So I was lucky early on to catch that.
Okay, let's roll on to the next segment. So that's the very beginning as you got started. So now we're going to kind of roll into as you're, picking up the game, you're getting going with it. Talk to me about your financial plan at the time. And as you, I guess at a certain point, you figured out that, well, I'm going to go into this game deep. Talk to me about that and lead me
Yeah.
through that process.
Well, Queens was the first of that, and just getting started with Queens, yeah, it was a splurge, but like, you know, in my context, personally, in the past, the most that I had done before, okay, that was the Coin app, and I maxed out the the Coin app with legendary NFTs and things like that. But
Hmm.
also, like, I was no stranger to trying to, uh, pay for enhanced profiles and things like that, like on Boom Beach, which
Hmm.
was, to this day, Boom Beach was a waste. There's nothing you get from that. You're just enhancing the profile and all that. Um, but yeah, with Atlas, I'll be honest, it was kind of like blind ambition, if you will. Like I didn't have a real plan. I just thought, okay, I'm comfortable. The ends justified the means for each one of the steps. It's not as if though, you just start with a few $100,000 or whatever. This was something that spread out over the course of 18 months,
Hmm.
with varying necessities, I'll say that. Different conquests, different kind of goals that I would set for myself. So it was kind of a spend creep, which, uh, and you're talking personal savings, credit cards, things like that. It's a little painful. um, but yeah, it's just I got drawn in by a lot of the competition of it. Like I wanted to take Queens, and then I'm like, you know what? If I get Manhattan as the next step, the state of New York was only at something like 7,000 parcels. If I
Hmm.
take over Manhattan at 4,500 parcels, then Queens plus Manhattan would equal the state of New York. And I'm like, okay, I can start to kind of stack and pile on the mayorships, strategic mayorships with a governorship altogether. So that's where the kind of initial thinking was happening. Was that. so I went from, okay, great. I clinched the state of New York with Manhattan. And then it was like, well, where else would it make sense? I thought, okay, I shouldn't leave the state of New York. I should try to maximize, number one, badge income potential with bigger cities, but
Yeah.
let's not do it outside of New York quite yet. Like we want to build up New York was kind of the idea. So I
Hmm.
flew out to Buffalo. I specifically flew out to Buffalo for the game. I went to Niagara Falls in addition to that, which, by the way, is the US side totally sucks. It is totally dead. Like, I was there on a Friday night and I'm in the middle of like downtown, like the merchant area at 11 p.m. And there I am on my phone buying parcels and it was dead. Like, this was what? Uh, August. So
Hmm.
it was like late summer of 2024. So, but you look across the river and it's just booming over on the Canadian side. But of course, if I'm on the Canadian side, it's like that's not New York anymore. It's it doesn't kind of serve the purpose of reinforcing New York State within the game strategy. You know.
Hmm. So I remember at during that period, at some point, you and I had sent messages back and forth on Discord a little bit, and some of the messages you can refresh my memory, but they were talking about the plan that you had developed and you were enacting as far as specific cities that you were shooting for. And I'll also throw this in at this same period, you were looking at different people that were above you, such as Stealth and then Shaman
Mhm.
15. So, kind of talk about your strategy and how that interacted with who you were up against at that point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, in the summer of 2024, like the biggest news was, oh my God, Stealth is on like he's like on Sherman's march across the country, taking
Mm-hmm.
over state for state, right? If you know Civil War history and history buff here, but you know, but Stealth was like this mysterious figure, and people were afraid. Oh my God, he's gonna take my mayorship. He's gonna take over my state.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, well, I needed to beef up New York specifically for that. I don't want Stealth to come out. Everyone was talking, even Count Max, who I got to know, thought, okay, my biggest threat is Stealth coming to Pennsylvania. I'm like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, Pennsylvania was somewhere I was looking to go until Count Max said, no, I'm planning this cross-state, venture township for township, and
Mm-hmm.
which clinched him the governorship. And
Yeah.
when he said that, I was going to go on a trip to go do that. I was going to go to Philadelphia and start with the bigger cities. I had to scrap plans last minute, and that's when I went to Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'll be honest, like it's a smaller state, but it under indexes in the game. That's the one thing that I'll tell you is that, a big state doesn't necessarily mean, a lot of potential volume here. It's all marketing driven as far as like where they acquire users for the
Mm-hmm.
platform. So like Connecticut is, when I look at badge income and, the performance of something like that, it's minuscule, it's tiny. Massachusetts, according to like the population that's there, is even worse. So it's like there are areas that are kind of like ripe for growth where I think they could shift, a lot of marketing efforts towards to get more users there. But then there are other areas like Texas and Florida that are really abundant. They're huge population centers, popular for tourism and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I'm kind of digressing here. The strategy was that, so Shaman came the into the situation here like what, August, September, I think September, October of 2024. And then he immediately went like neck and neck with Count Max in Pennsylvania. And it was brutal. Like this was the beginning of what, Manning used to call the whale wars. And like us three guys, and we all joke about it now, but it's like we were buying pack after pack. We were literally were trying to kind of lock down what we had, but we're trying to outmaneuver each other.
Let me
So
stop you
so
there just for a minute
yeah.
because this is one of the most popular questions asked. Just in round ballpark terms, how much money are we talking about here?
Oh God. Like we're talking about all in for 18 months, or are you talking about these
Just
individual like
during that period when you were doing this heavy competition on your direct chug towards the presidentship, how
yeah.
much were you spending per month? something like that.
Oh gosh. So example, I made it the big trip to Texas. That was like my big pivot trip.
Mm-hmm.
Texas was probably something like 80 grand, 90 grand or something like that. Like just an insane amount that it's yeah, it's painful. But I remain hopeful, and I'm still optimistic here that I'll get to a break even.
Okay, a little bit of a digression, but I wanted to go there because that's what
Yeah,
everybody wants to hear. So, back. So, you're in the middle of this fight. You've got a
yeah.
plan going on to take over specific cities or states, rather, and you're fighting for the presidentship.
Well, not quite yet, right? So Shaman 15 had taken over Pennsylvania, then he's fighting with Max, for West Virginia, and then Virginia itself and Maryland. And Max is just frustrated. I mean, the poor guy was just, you know, I give a lot of credit to Shaman. He is a fierce competitor here, but he's also very fair, and I consider him a close friend right now too. But that I didn't want to get caught in that. So I said, you know what? Screw this. I'm leaving the Northeast and I'm going down to Texas because that's ripe. It's a ripe opportunity. The parcel counts were low, and I plotted out all the big cities again, following the strategy of go for the big cities, transportation centers, and then eventually it stacks up to get the governorship.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I was doing that, Shaman had started to, this was like November, December. We all noticed because we had a whole stealth, takedown stealth Discord group, and we were actively talking about that. It wasn't really so much about stealth anymore. It was more who the heck is this guy Shaman? Is he real and
Mm-hmm.
is he spoofing? We're all paranoid that he's spoofing. No, he wasn't spoofing. He was very legit. But he was in Chicago, he was in Illinois, and then we're watching as he's taking over state for state: Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan. And so that kind of reinforced the whole idea. He's like, I can't, I mean, for me, by the way, I'm in New York, I'm in Michigan, I'm in Texas, and I'm in Florida, and I do business in California. So I'm all over the country like that, but really only in those states. But at that point, I thought, okay, Michigan's totally off limits. I need to avoid Shaman because that just is a recipe for disaster. I'm gonna, waste a lot of money, and it's not gonna be as worth it. It's not. It's gonna, throw the strategy off. So I kept away from all of that. I outmaneuvered Shaman, and decided, okay, Texas and Florida would be like the big targets after that. I'd avoid the Midwest. I'd avoid Michigan, even though I have a lot of family there, and avoid Ohio, which was I was thinking about, and focus it like that. And that's the thing. Like we all noticed, like, and I, Shaman and I, we will laugh about this to this day. I'm not knocking him here. I don't blame him. He didn't value the cities. He didn't value towns and cities of significance. So he'd buy in his backyard, in the south of Pittsburgh. He'd buy along, I-80, going across Ohio and Indiana, which is basically how he got the states. He just was buying like crazy, and he'd stop along the turnpike or something like that. So I was like, well,
Mm-hmm.
Shaman's president, but he might be king of the turnpike in Ohio too.
Yeah.
but but anyway, that was the thing that set us all apart. So we all realized, we're like, you know what, Shaman's maybe not such a threat here because he's not going for the big cities.
Mm-hmm.
He's not following what Stealth was doing. He just is valuing being president and being governor, period. And that was it.
Okay.
Um, so when I started to add this all up, and I fast forward, a whole year after that, it all paid off, and I realized, holy crap! Like the president position's not worth like what everybody thinks it is.
Okay.
It is actually like I do better with cities and states
Mm-hmm.
altogether. The president level just it adds to it. It's I'm not knocking it. It's nice, but you know when you follow the strategy and you stack everything up, you realize that this game works for everybody, for all players at all levels. So I'll give you a good example. We always talk about Pawtucket in Rhode Island, and I'm giving a nice shout out here to Mexican Savage, who's hopefully he'll be governor of Rhode Island on the platform soon. But
Okay.
the whole idea is, you could, if you are in a thoroughfare city like Pawtucket on I-95, And then you start to stack up, where the airport is, and Windsor Falls, I think is the name of it, and Rhode Island, and then you take over Providence, the capital.
Hmm.
Before you know it, you're now the governor of that, and in some ways, he's a mini KOQ on his own.
Okay.
He doesn't need to necessarily be at the level of 150 and higher thousand, to have the same kind of like uh, economics. So this whole the beauty of Atlas Earth is that it works for the smallest player, it works for the biggest player too. So it's very, very developed by design.
Okay. Now, at a certain point during this progression, you noticed obviously that you're spending more money, and at a certain point that your plans are kind of coming to fruition, and you're getting on the road towards becoming president. There's
Mhm.
a strategy that you were following. Is there any? Was there any? What do I want to say? A not just a strategy, but a budget that you had in mind that you said in the back of your mind when you first started in, this is what I'm going to spend. I'm not going to spend anything more. And then at a certain point, you decided, well, I'm spending more.
Yeah, look, I'm not. I took a lot of risk, and I take a lot of
Hmm.
risks. I don't have family, I'd like to start, that'd be great, but I don't, I'm able to I'm able to afford to be able to take those kinds of risks where I am right now because of the fact I don't have dependents like that. So
Hmm.
it's just a fact of life, and that'll change, as that situation changes. But the I didn't start with a budget, and that was something
Okay.
I really should have been careful about. I just got totally lured into it, and I let my emotional instincts kind of dictate, what I would do. So I'm, was liquidating, some personal savings and using credit cards, and before you know it, I mean, you're using some funds that you have available, but you're also taking on some debt that's also not ideal,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I mean, it's a tough realization of it. Because you go into something with the best of intentions and full faith in the platform and everything, but I'm counting on being able to get to a point of break even. I'm not a truck driver. I'm not this super wealthy guy or whatever. I'm just like everybody else playing the game. I have no plans to change that. I wake up like everybody else does. And I think everybody else boosts. You're checking if you're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
boosted or not. I'm just totally an average player here. I just happen to have more parcels. That's just it.
Yeah. Now, at a certain point, I think you became much more analytical about the whole process, keeping track of everything. It almost seems to me, just from a low guy standpoint, that at the position where you're at, you would almost have to treat it like a business, keeping track of all the numbers. Is that true?
Yeah, yeah. So what really, when I started to take it more seriously, we'll just say that, and be more analytical, was actually talking to the private Discord group. So a lot of credit to Count Max. Count Max really kind of encouraged me here to start tracking badge income, and
Hmm.
you know um, and that's something that even to this day I'm still looking at, because I need to determine like what is worth defending, and what is not. There's a lot of small places from the very first months that I don't think that make as much sense, out in Long
Hmm.
Island, for example. By the way, for folks listening, I mean, for Long Island, go check out the web interface and the map there. You'll see there's clusters there of, where you could get all of your badges if you need all 100 badges in one day if you really wanted to. Just drive
Wow.
around there, and I'm dead serious. It's like a hotspot of like tiny, because well, New York is organized by towns and villages. Towns are like our
Hmm.
counties, and the villages are, I mean, it's basically what the name suggests. So, you're crossing from one line to the next, and you can just drive a circle between Nassau and Suffolk County within one day, and boom, like get all of your badges. That's actually what I did.
That's pretty
So I
wild.
was lucky.
That kind of reminds me of what some of the people say over in the UK. Very dense badges.
Yes, yes, it's well, I mean, it's an old colonial,
Hmm.
property, if you will. I feel I feel bad for those out in the Midwest or so, and they talk about, or in Texas. My God, you have to travel. a half a day to maybe get a few badges.
Yeah.
Um, so hey, if anything, come visit New York. It's an awesome place in the summer, and go get your badges out in Long Island. It's beautiful out there.
Okay, so talk. You were talking. We're making progress. You're making progress towards your goal of what I'd like to say. What I got out of your statement on it is that most of your badge income comes from mayorships and governorships, and the presidential badge income is just kind of like building up to that and icing on the cake. So lead us through
Mhm.
what your strategy was for parcel placement and what you actually looked for.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some of it is inherent. So transportation centers, international airports are key. Um, like New York is so obvious, but maybe not so obvious. I should explain, what makes it special. Because beyond being a population center, number one. Number two, like Queens has two international airports. It also has, significant rail lines through it. You have people that, whether they're in their car, they're on the train or whatever, there's a very strong likelihood if they're using Atlas Earth, they're eventually going to pass through there on what
Hmm.
other trip they may be. So the same thing can apply to, like, for example, Mr. Everything down in Atlanta. He has the Atlanta Hartsfield Airport. Um, if it wasn't for me knowing him, like getting to know everybody personally kind of gets in the way of saying, "Hey, I'm going to conquest all your areas." But Mr. Everything has, the lockdown on that area, and that does very well. That's like
Hmm.
maybe the second or third largest, if not the first largest airport in the country. So like those do very well, but then you got to look at the web interface. Uh, Hartsfield Airport is not part of the city of Atlanta. It's part of Clayton County. It's essentially
Okay.
outside of the city. So you find some like nuances like that. Same thing applies to something like Arn, and I give him a lot of credit. He took over the state of Minnesota. Minneapolis Airport there, MSP, is not part of the city of Minneapolis. It's kind of another small county right outside of it. So you have to kind of find like some of those nuggets. You might see they're like, oh, look at the parcel counts. What could I potentially take it over with? What is needed to kind of keep it secure and quote unquote safe. And so you try to get smart about that. So population centers, transportation points. Um, yeah, you know, and the other thing though is too, it's like how much space, does it actually occupy in the web interface? Like there's some cities that are totally fragmented. Like New York it used to actually be, before I joined, it was one big city, and then they broke it into the boroughs like Manhattan,
Hmm.
Queens, Brooklyn. You have some cities that are really like you'd think are a lot bigger. Boston is broken up into all of its neighborhoods. So the city of Boston, I mean, I learned that the hard way. Like, not only is Massachusetts an underperformer, the city of Boston like performs like a small town to
Oh.
me, because you're surrounded by like Cambridge and Somerville and all these others, and you're talking it's only like a mile, like literally like a mile outside of like Boston city center, and you're now into all these other boroughs that have their own badges and identities. So like it's whether it's fragmented or not makes a big difference. You're talking about places like Jacksonville, Houston, Chicago, LA, New York. Like these are they're like the outliers in the game. They do very well, but they're large footprints. It's a lot of
Yeah.
territory.
Yeah.
So, and one other thing too is you want to look at how they designed it. And again, this is just by deduction. You look at you look at the county area, right? So if, for example, you have a large city that resides within a large county, but you want to understand, okay, what is the county really worth? The county technically is the unincorporated, the
Hmm.
part that is where you get the county badge would be the unincorporated part of the county,
Hmm.
minus the city. So you kind of have to use what you have available in the web interface, and also kind of understand the geopolitical setup of some of these places. I'm a total dork for that. Like I look all this up. I'm up till 2, 3 in the morning looking at this stuff. There's spreadsheets that I have put together of all this. like my work has suffered because hey, I've been absorbed about all things Atlas. So it's a science, but some of it makes sense, some of it's logical, others, it's not. Like there's you just you and like I said, so much of the user base is marketing driven. There are states
Hmm.
where they really should start to grow the populations out, like the user base out more, so that at least it's geographically representative. So right now it's not. It's like there are areas that are skewed in the map of where users are concentrated and where they're
Yeah.
not.
Okay, that's pretty wild. I know from my initial talking to you, I was like, wow, this person is really numbers oriented and strategy oriented, and he goes into it much deeper than most people. So we're at a position here where you're leading us up. Your strategy seems to be paying off at that point in time. And I just remember the time period, you getting in touch with me and saying, hey, this is kind of my strategy, and I think this is what's going to be happening the next couple months. Um, and then there was this talk of taking over for Shaman 15, and then I expected some big blown out battle, but then Shaman 15 turns out to be a cool guy, and it turned out to be like not a big thing. And he's like, okay,
Mhm.
so he just basically stepped down and let you take it over. So lead us through that. What led up to it and the final takeover?
Yeah, 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 that was really interesting. Again, it was like Shaman was like enemy number one, right? I mean, everybody was kind of gunning for it, and I thought, hey guys, like, I'm doing this service for the whales here. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna splurge one more time here and go all out. Well, my whole thing was I'm gonna go out to Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is gonna be like, the big showdown because my numbers were getting close enough to where Shaman was, and Shaman was seemed like he was slowing down,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of knew, like, in the run up to that, I'd heard from Shaman, and he's just like, look, he's like, he kind of, it was a tip of the hat moment. He's like, look, I think I kind of effed up here. I'm just going after these governorships, and that's where he started getting pressure from like Belak in Michigan, and then Stone's awesome. He's in Indiana. Stone went all the way, full throttle and secured that state. And the thing for Shaman was he realized, holy crap, when he loses a state, he loses a big chunk of badge
Mm-hmm.
income. And why is that so important? I mean, because we look at badge income as a kind of exponential kicker on the base rent, of course, and how you can grow your base. And it helps to augment what would be a base rent that you have. So always emphasizing how something performs and how it helps your overall earned rent. The badge income was always a component of that.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of told me, he's like, look, I'm kind of like, I'm going to defend what I've got here, but I really don't really want to like push too much more on this. And he realized, well, crap, he thinks he kind of got it wrong. And I'm playing it cool, but at the same time, he's saying, well, look, I've actually been more busy on something, called Go Mining.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard about the platform before, like, Go Mining. I'd seen the ads because I mean, I have another business. I work in crypto mining. I have physical miners, here in the States, and I've had a lot of issues. I mean, it has it paid out net? No. I mean, I
Yeah.
have not made my return there, but it was interesting because Shaman came proactively and suggested, he's like, maybe it's something that could be a fit for you or so. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I at the time I was exploring how I could upgrade my fleet of miners, which was a big focus starting in 24 for me. And I didn't really see. I mean, I didn't really buy the go mining thing in the beginning because I said,
Mm-hmm.
what, my heart is with it, my heart is with, my physical operation. But then
Mm-hmm.
things take time. You're raising capital. You're trying to buy these machines. And then of course we had the election of November 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened, unfortunately, was the Trump tariffs for me made buying those miners and bringing them to the states. so much more costly. And
Hmm.
then, of course, you see the run up on crypto and Bitcoin's running over 100 grand. And I'm thinking, like, oh my God, I'm screwed. Like, I'm missing my
Yeah.
window of opportunity. I can't, like, I needed to upgrade. So, I mean, it spilled over into 2025. um, and I kept trying to find ways to get my machines, and ultimately it was like, you know what, it doesn't make sense right now, and so I kind of gave second thought to that, and I'm like, okay, I'm all ears. I was talking to Shaman, and he had already had many months of results, under the belt there for what he, for the for performance, and it was convincing. So I abandoned my real world expansion for uh, liquid Bitcoin hash rate with Go mining, and uh, super grateful that I did. So I'm very grateful here to Shaman for having suggested that.
Okay. Trying to take a step back, I guess.
Mhm.
So that's how you started talking to Shaman 15. And then what happened? What ensued to kind of progress your takeover in Atlas Earth as president?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to digress there with Go mining, but um, yeah. So I mean, I was, so having LA in place was key. I also was going back and forth to Texas and Florida. I wanted to solidify the lead that I would have, because again, I'm like, okay, this could be too good to be true, and then suddenly, Shaman wants to come back and
Hmm.
buy another pack and take back the presidency. So getting a far enough lead ahead of him. When you think of it, it's like, you think about it at a local level, about being 500 parcels ahead of someone, or 1,000 parcels, or whatever it may be. We're talking about the country.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
what is this going to be? Am I going to be set up here for some humiliating event? So it was kind of a mad dash. I'm like, okay, I'm going to seize the opportunity. Let's secure LA, and and just and double down here. So it was like, after that, I don't know, I went to Texas for a little bit. I doubled down on some places there to reinforce. I went to Florida, solidified, Orlando and Disney World and other places. Um, so, it just became a matter of having like a safe gap at that point, just
Hmm.
not knowing. This is before we were real friends or so, but that was kind of the post president kind of mindset, parcel wise.
Okay. Okay, now rolling into the next topic, which is something a lot of people like to speculate on and talk about, even though they don't really know the real numbers from your perspective. So I'm going to ask this big question, and feel free to answer as generally or specifically as you want to. But talk about overall. We've talked about kind of early on what you were putting into the game. Overall, what do your
Mhm.
numbers say that you've spent on the game, and give us an idea of what kind of Atlas bucks you're receiving in badge income on a monthly basis, as well as what kind of rent return you're getting on a monthly basis compared to what you've spent.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things of like, I, I'll say this. I having anonymity and having privacy is key. Is And the more everybody knows, the more you can't take that away. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So I know there are some top players that really value that. I I've kind of alluded to this, to some folks. It's a few $100,000.
Okay.
It's a house, and in most places in the country, that is not New York City, but it's painful. But yeah, it's a few $100,000, a few $100,000, that is, in total expense. Again, spread out over 18 months. Um, so does it, do I still feel it? Yeah, I'd be lying if I said it didn't have a real impact, or that I couldn't feel that right now. So it sucks, but I am confident here on being able to get to break even. that's the really kind of the strategy here is maximizing the features in the game. That is for me to be able to shorten the amount of time for me to be able to essentially, see a return, to have, essentially savings and things like that all back. So I mean, for me, it's a years, it's years now that I need to be engaged. I have to be engaged.
Hmm.
But it doesn't stop there. It's like I'm doing all of the monthly challenges. I do all the mini games, but I do the mini games only as part of the monthly challenges because I'm not
Hmm.
good at them.
Yeah,
um,
same here.
you know, but I get my LPUs through that, by the way, never buy an LPU. Like just
Yeah.
earn it through the monthly
Yeah.
challenges. That's by far. Um, yeah, I don't know. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think that works. I mean, can you speak a little bit to how many Atlas bucks you receive because of badge sales on a monthly basis?
I mean, uh, I'll give a range because,
Hmm.
mind you, there are definitely trends. Like the weekends are always the best. The weekends you always see somewhere like 25 to 50%, sometimes more over what you see on the weekday. A bad day, might be something like 2,500 or 3,000 a day. And on a good day, I mean, I almost don't want to even say it, but like Thanksgiving, by the way, is insane. Like Thanksgiving, I know we had last year was what do we have? I think we had an SRB around the same time too, plus Thanksgiving's at the end of November.
Hmm.
But any family oriented holiday
Okay.
is absolutely bonkers. Like an insane amount. You wouldn't even believe me. So but I think everybody kind of sees that impact because it's all of the it's when I see it again, it plays into the cities that I have, the governorships that I have, and then there's the presidency on top. And it's those cities and states that still outdo anything the presidency does.
Hmm. Okay, so rolling along, let's just talk a little bit about where you are today, and kind of roll into that. Um, at this point, I'm assuming you're mostly operating off of Atlas bucks you make off of badge sales, or correct me if I'm wrong. What's your strategy today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still paying for all of the subscriptions, memberships, and things like that.
Hmm.
The monthly challenges, I try to get those done as soon as I can, like,
Hmm.
typically something between like 7 and 10 days into the month. But like, here I am, like, giving into the arcade games.
Yeah.
I actually like it. I
Yeah.
mean, I genuinely love the game. I'm extremely passionate about it. Um, so, um, yeah, I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. Um, eh,
Your strategy
yes,
today. Yeah.
yeah. Sorry. Yeah, today. So, it's more dependent. Yeah, it's more leaning on badge income. I save up for, to defend key cities and states. I'm not looking to be, I'm more defensive and more in maintenance right now as opposed to where I was
Okay.
before in expansion. So I'm not looking to take over Seattle. There's no way. I'm not going against Snowfish.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking to take over Stealth or anything like that. He still has like the Dakotas and other places, and even Shaman. I mean, Shaman wants to defend his places too. So it's more like, I switched from being more aggressive to working from within the means that I have. And it's totally fine. Like it's pacing wise, yeah, it lets me do something every month or two.
Yeah.
Um, and so you're almost kind of like free to play in some ways. But I mean,
Yeah.
look, I've invested so heavily, to get up into this point. It's like I've earned that at this
Oh
point.
yeah,
It's
definitely,
you know,
definitely. That's definitely got to be part of your strategy. So this kind of
yeah.
transitions pretty well to the next topic, and I want to treat this topic very gingerly,
Hmm.
because it is a topic that directly affected you because you are the first person to exceed the 150,000 cap. So we're going to talk about this gingerly, but obviously, when you're putting a lot of money into the game at the very beginning, that SRB is where your return is coming from. and then to have a rules change put into place that limits that. So, as I said, we're just going to talk about a little bit about that coming into place and how that affected your overall view of the game going forward, and
Yeah.
how you're going to treat it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a delicate topic, and I can speak to it a little bit here. Um, but I would say this, it was a big surprise. Of course, I think the other whales were surprised as well because I mean, some of them, I think, on a trajectory of where the game will be and where they expect to be in 2 or 3 years out, like
Hmm.
they're all going to be pretty close to that.
Yeah.
Even Rainbow, Count Max, Shaman, they're not stopping. They're boosting. They're recycling rent and they're putting down parcels they earn. And it's just a matter of time, just by natural organic growth, that
Yeah.
you'll be there, even with that or paying. And some of these guys are paying, like Cody's, excuse me, Rainbow's big conquest in Germany. He put down a good 25,000 parcels or so. So he was learning about that after the Germany conquest. You know, and after spending that, and he, it was kind of a shock to a lot of us. About 150. Um, but I'll say this: it doesn't change my view on the game. I'm kind of letting all cooler heads prevail here, and I'm just doing exactly what I did before. I'm playing the game. I'm maintaining my Explorer membership, Explorer Club, excuse me. I do the monthly challenges. I pay for all of those. And the 8 hours of boosting. And by the way, it should be like 12 hours, please. If we could expand it, it'd be awesome. Like,
That would be nice.
I know. I somehow it's like I end up with like 7 hours and 1 minute before I fall asleep, and then it's you miss out on something. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, no, I'd say I think it kind of slowed down at least some of the ambitions of some of the whales.
Hmm.
I get it from a sustainability standpoint. I mean, the game by design is for everybody, and it's not the whales that they make their money on. It's the smaller players that
Hmm.
are in that kind of 100 to 1500 parcel range.
Hmm.
That's the bread and butter here. It's monetizing ad revenue off of those folks and their subscriptions, and trying to build out as much of a user base of those guys. So I get why it happened. I kind of just wish I had more time, and if it was more sensitively handled, it would have been nicer.
Hmm.
It's uh, I'll put it this way: for everything that I did for with Atlas here, I mean, I got diamond medallion status on Delta from all the traveling across the country.
Hmm.
It's like Delta rolls out the carpet, and we've definitely stuck our neck out for Atlas. So that's not changing. I still love Atlas, and I love everything that it stands for here. And I'm here for years to come.
Okay, that's a good wrap up there. Okay, what just kind of evolving this conversation? What do you see for your immediate future inside Atlas Earth right now? And also, give me an idea of some things that you see from the top that people from the bottom, like myself, probably just completely miss or aren't aware of.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I kind of it just kind of segues from the last question, right? Was I'm not slowing down. I'm going to defend what I have here. I'm using my own player analytics to kind of understand the areas that are more valuable in the long
Hmm.
term for me. So I think some people have mistaken. They're like, oh, he hit 150K on his parcels. The KOQ, he's done. He's retired. Absolutely not.
Okay.
I mean, I'm down in Florida. I have relocated temporarily, but that's not stopping me. So I'm continuing to play. I do all of the challenges. Um, but yeah, about your question about like kind of what I see from the top. As mentioned, I think the analytics trends that I see in badge income at the president level, those have been a really good health indicator of growth on the platform, the numbers are really consistent. Like I can look back. I almost have about what 9, 10 months of data here daily in badge income for the president level, and apart from the outliers, which are the holidays like Thanksgiving, it's a steady amount, which means that it they're constantly the growth is maintaining the same level all throughout the year. So they're doing an awesome job here in continuing to nurture the user base. Every day, the platform is growing. We're getting more players on board. I do think that there's some regional areas that they could shift, some attention
Yeah.
to kind of balance it out. But kudos to them. This is Atlas Earth is a resounding success. So there is no slowing down with that. Um, there's I think for other things, um, hmm, I'm trying to think here of, what else to kind of say. Again, I want to emphasize this. It's like everybody puts so much emphasis here on the president level. Oh, it's like, would it be awesome to be the president level? You don't have to be, I don't think that's the end to all. Again, I mentioned that example of Rhode Island as like a small ecosystem here, where you have, and areas that are really strategic and do well on badge income, and then you stack that on like I talked about in the strategy of having your key points of interest plus this, then that just automatically earns you the governor level once you're at a certain level. And so that's what I
Mhm.
always told the guys. I said, look, you don't need to be at 150,000. In fact, if you're able to do that and you're able to still get badge income and all that, it's a smaller level. But if you can turn a profit, I said, you're already one step ahead of me after that. I said, then you are really
Mhm.
truly using the game and you're making it work for you.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think we covered that topic pretty well. I want to spend just a few
Mm,
minutes here talking about, you had went into it a little bit, your diversification into go mining. The whole idea that you got when you started talking to Shaman 15 about the go mining opportunity, and you, first of all, let me say to our
mm,
viewers, this is none of what we're talking about is investment advice. Okay.
mhm,
Um, but at that point, and I have a small history in building my own home rigs, right? So at that
mhm.
point, several years ago, I was heavy into it until electricity forced it to be prohibitive on the home scale. But at the point you were considering changing your investment from actual mining, physical mining, to go mining, go ahead and just talk us through this and what that looked like.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I kind of alluded to how that kind of happened and how I was introduced to go mining by Shaman. Very grateful to hear. But my whole background is that I've been a real world physical Bitcoin miner here for the
Hmm.
last crypto miner, I should say, because I did Ethereum first and then
Hmm.
Bitcoin. But I've been
Hmm.
doing it for about 6 years now, and this is at a commercial level. This is using upwards of a megawatt of electricity on an ongoing basis. I can power two Walmart super centers with that, which is insane.
Hmm.
Um, but and mind you, I am focusing on trying to make that renewable. I do can understand the impact on environment and things like that, and that's a huge incentive. I'm trying to move that over to renewable sources like solar,
Hmm.
or even things like flare gas, natural gas. And by the way, if folks are hearing this too, I mean, I am looking for new energy partnerships in natural gas. So if you work for an operator, owner, or so, and you have wells, I'm very, very interested in that right now. Um, but anyway, I've the trials and tribulations of this are immense, and everyone thinks, "Oh, you're making boku bucks, you're doing so well, or whatever." Not quite. It's all dependent on the mining difficulty and the
Yeah.
price level when you're into actual mining, and then you have to maintain the things because some of them break.
Yeah.
Then you got to get them
Definitely.
serviced. And I had a drunk driver hit a utility pole, out where the facility is, and then it sent a power surge through the line, and I had to like 25 machines literally on fire. They fried.
Wow.
So I mean, like there's some major risks with it. I don't know, knock on wood here. It's like, if it could happen, it's like, what is it, Murphy's Law? Is that
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, it's like it
If it can
happens.
go wrong, it will.
Yeah. So go mining was such a relief here. I thought, okay, is this like, the NFTs, like, is this something that I want to be part of? And then you understand, you learn more about the organization. They're backed by real world mining, like what I do, but they're doing it, with 100 megawatts of
Hmm.
electricity, like powering basically a small city. Um, so they've got that. They have the backing of their own token with 125 million on market cap. They're just a rock solid organization. And I don't need to worry about all the equipment issues. I don't need to send equipment to, like, Bitmain to get, repaired and maintained. I don't need to worry about renegotiating energy contracts and all that kind of jazz. So they Go mining handles it all. The overall energy cost for me, when I look at the math, is better than what I was getting, with my utility.
Hmm.
And so you're able to generate a profit from it a lot easier. Um, and yeah, ever since I've joined, it has been like that. It is a profitable venture. Um, so I'm glad that I'm doing that. It's a super engaging platform. Like, it has two sides to it. You can be a solo miner, which is just like if you own the miner and you're
Hmm.
just letting it run, and you have to hit the service button every day, in the evening. Or you do something else, which I know a lot of Atlas guys have switched over to, called Miner Wars,
Hmm.
which basically lets you join a clan of groups, and you're competing for one of the blocks. So in mining Bitcoin, there's a block that's essentially rewarded every 10, 15 minutes or so as you go. There's just hundreds and thousands of these blocks. No different with Miner Wars. That's how you compete. You have to compete for boosting against one of them. You have a few folks. I won't name any. I don't really want to call anyone out, but if you look at the top roster, on Go mining for farms, that's what they call, having these fleets of machines.
Hmm.
You'll recognize a lot of similar names, but it's
Hmm.
highly competitive. We have our own Discord for it. It's very collaborative. So, it's not as if though one person benefits, another one doesn't. Like, maybe you win a block or so, and others don't at the time, but the clan shares it. So it's very collaborative. And it's only helped to kind of augment everything that we've developed as a community of players starting over from Atlas.
Hmm. And to
So,
be clear, this wasn't really anything about abandoning Atlas Earth or
yes.
anything like that. This was just, from my what I'm understanding, is like an evolution of one of your other businesses.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. It's absolutely, it plays more into the theme of what can I do with my beer money? Like,
Hmm.
okay, you have your rent from Atlas Earth.
That's
Sure,
a
you
lot
could
of beer money.
recycle. Yeah. No, no, no. Definitely, Go mining is not $10. Yes, you can have a
Yeah.
miner at $10, by the way, but it's more. You see commonly people starting around 500, a thousand
Hmm.
dollars or so. You get to the top 10, and you're now talking, 1.5 million and higher. It goes really high. But again, the economies of scale with the platform are such that if you're, the low guy on the totem pole, or you're the whale at the top, you still have equal opportunity of earning, that is, depending on the size of your farm.
Hmm.
So there's no one person disadvantaged over the other. It's pretty equal like that.
Yeah.
You know.
And
But I was going to say, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to throw this out there that
Yeah.
after I talked to Shaman 15, there was a number of people that was interested in finding out about Go mining, and so he set up a Discord channel. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're part of that as well. So if
Yes.
anybody's interested, I will leave the link to join that Discord channel in the show notes of this. So you can join that Discord
Yep.
channel and then ask questions.
Absolutely.
That's about the most direct way I could find to send people in the right direction, so to speak.
Absolutely. There is an incentive right now too, and I'd say this. Bitcoin it runs in cycles. Every 4 years,
Hmm.
there's a halvening. You have a crypto winter, and then you have peaks. Well, we had our peak, which was 2020, end of 2024, 2025, and now Bitcoin is now down to like around 60,000, which puts it where it used to be the old all-time high. Mind you, Bitcoin was somewhere around 125, 130,000,
Hmm.
when it was at its peak. So you'll see these cycles now, but essentially what I'm saying here, and again, this is not this, everybody has to understand there's assumed risk with all these things. It's not an
Hmm.
investment advice. But there's incentives to get in while it's low, so to speak. And even right now, if you join, there's a 5% bonus that you get in hash power for any miner that you buy. So I was going to
Okay.
say here too, there is an address you can go to here that'll get you that incentive here in the offer. Trygomining.com. Again,
Hmm.
that's trygomining.com. And that'll bring you right to the offer and whatnot. It's most, I would recommend, you want to, you can sign on online like that, but it'll eventually push you to download the mobile app, which is, it's a
Hmm.
lot more, um, it's a better experience. Just put it that way.
Hmm. Okay, and before I ask this next question, once again, for the YouTube algorithm, I'm going to reinforce that what I'm asking and what I reinforce on my channel is that Atlas Earth is a game. It is not an investment device. They even say so in their terms of service, right? But it's very clear that people like yourself and Shaman 15 have treated this game like an investment. You've put so much money into it. So, with that in mind, if somebody was new to Atlas Earth or Go mining, can you compare the current investment model between the two and what
Mhm.
just kind of look at that and talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, look, it's really hard to compare the two,
Hmm.
two different beasts, so to speak.
Definitely. Yeah.
Atlas Earth it falls into the category of the beer money apps. Think of it like life companion savings apps, for your everyday. I do like the enhancement with Tesoro, for example. I thought that was a nice move. I was worried of what it would evolve to, but kudos to the team and the founding team here. I think it worked out really well. We just like to see more merchants part of it. Like I'd love to
Definitely.
be able to put gas on it. Like holy crap, let's get gas stations on Tesoro, right?
Definitely.
um, so yeah, like Atlas Earth is this. I think the economies. If you work within the 1,500 parcel level, if you get right to that sweet spot of 1,500 parcels, and now you're using it with shopping, you're using it with travel, which I use it. And travel's interesting, by the way, because, the Atlas bucks vary depending on location, but it doesn't mean that the more Atlas bucks pay out for the higher value properties. It's sometimes totally different, but that's a
Okay.
different topic. But again, if you're using all of the features within Atlas Earth and you only spend a little bit to get yourself to like the 1,500 mark, you max out your passport with the badges to 100 badges to get the 25%, then I think you're doing really well. I would just say think very carefully about where you want to place those parcels of the 1,500. You
Hmm.
know, it could be a suburb, that you're in. You want to prioritize a high traffic area. I think what you
Yeah.
see a lot is, when you're in the app, uh, in residential areas, you kind of know, you see where people have downloaded the app and they bought a few parcels in their backyard. But, if you really want to get serious about this, you got to think about, okay, where do I live? Is there an airport nearby? Is there a highway nearby? Look at the web app, the web interface, the map on there, and think about, okay, where do I know the most people in my area travel through? Where are there areas like stadiums or the areas where I'm going to see a lot of people? And typically think of it like people who are probably 30 to 50 years old that have, a family, because mind you, the amusement parks and things like that are huge on the app.
Yeah.
So you get a sense it's an older audience. It's not, well, there are younger guys, but in users, but it's predominantly some people that are working professionals that are maybe have a home already. Like this is like a little hobby that they pick up.
Hmm. Okay, well, I mean, that was a great wrap up. First of all, I want to say thanks again for making the time to join me and going through all the steps to get ready for this discussion. I just kind of want to throw this at you as a way to kind of wrap things up. If you could sit down with the developers of Atlas Earth or Go
Mhm.
Mining for that matter, what is one major feature or direction you would like to see them take with the two platforms?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll focus on Atlas Earth here,
Hmm.
and that's the most of the focus here. I mean, I think there's kind of a wish list, right? I mean, there's something that a lot of the um the top players and other players kind of mumble about on socials. One is, it'd be nice to have more player analytics. Like, if you were to log into, it doesn't have to be in the app necessarily, but maybe put it into the web app,
Hmm.
the web interface. What I mean by that is, what kind of, okay, so we know what our total rent accrued is over time, but can you show us, for example, can we get a feed or a downloadable option for, or a feed for where our badge income is coming from, and or if there's even something visually that can be shown, like where all of our properties are located,
Hmm.
or something about player performance on mini games. It would just be, I think, engaging, and it's another reason to keep people engaged, and returning back for more. So I get it. It's a dev priority.
Hmm. I like that idea from like an IT
Yeah.
standpoint. A lot of applications you manage have what they call a single pane of glass, a management console. That would be
Hmm.
nice to have something similar like that so you can get a top-down view of what your account's doing and all the
Yeah.
numbers.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I do all this manually. It's kind of a
Hmm.
chore. Like, my Sundays are usually, me on my spreadsheets that I've been managing here, and then I'll be on the web interface on the map to kind of see where people are starting to creep up on me.
Hmm.
Which is, I think a lot of us do that.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, the web interface is one. Again, the one big ask I had in the past was maybe we could get an ad-free paid subscription option, but
Mm.
I don't see that happening. But something that would allow you to be boosted 24/7, but you're going to pay for it basically.
Hmm.
Um, and it's probably, I think, we brought it up to Manning. It's more of a dev cost versus benefit kind of situation with that. It's like, how many players really is it going to be needed for?
Yeah.
But again, I'll keep asking until the program, until this grows to 20 million or 30 million people.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know I think, there's some video ad providers for rewarded video, like Malaco. I mean, it has a great reputation as a business, but I think some people can agree we're starting to see a creep up of these like 150-second videos,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
on Malaco. Oh my gosh, like there's a Chinese advertiser with a whole drama miniseries, and it's like
Yeah.
180 seconds to watch a mini drama. I'm thinking, my God, okay, I'm just gonna like close the app and reload it and hope that there's like a nice like 10
Yeah.
second pop up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
that's a discussion topic amongst a lot of players. I hear about it on my videos as well as on our live streams.
yeah.
How the progression of ads over the years, the ads have gotten longer, plus they have gotten more complicated, forcing more interaction.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's you watch it, you press the it's like a play icon with a line, and then
Hmm.
and then that exits out to another window, which you have to wait for 10 seconds for another X. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, they're becoming more complex, but there is value behind it. I get it, as from an advertiser standpoint and
Hmm.
publisher standpoint, for Atlas. So, uh, I mean, again, these are all behaviorally triggered. So, I mean, there's some shortcuts to that, like, go visit, something simple like a gardening site, or, something like a financial service or whatever, and you'll probably be retargeted with a brand or a similar brand to that with a much shorter video. So,
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
there's that. Or if you keep getting the same, like the thing for me was, what's the Save the King, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Royal
oh
games.
god.
Yeah.
Yeah, Royal Flush, Royal
Yeah.
something, and it's like,
Yeah.
and that was another like 200-second, video
Yeah.
spot. Well, you know what? I in the end, I click install,
Yeah.
because here's what they don't want to necessarily target you if you were already like downloaded the app and you sign up for it,
Hmm.
because then that takes you out of their retargeting pool. So if you
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
get rid of an ad, you download it, install the app, go through the process, enable that you are allowing tracking, go as far as signing up for an account, and then you just swipe it away. Don't think about
Hmm.
it again. It'll probably disappear from your feed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an interesting take. Now, while
Uh,
we're talking about this, which I think plays into a number one, another one of the items you wanted to mention.
mm,
What do you think, and what is your strategy, or what do you look at for the new landmark auctions? Are they
oh,
interesting to you?
well, I mean, my priority is defending the titles that I've got, and there's some guys that are creeping up on me. I'm watching it, so I'm watching you guys in the Bronx. I'm watching you in LA. No, that's my priority right now. It's just I want to protect what I've got because it's part of my projections and what's important to me. I think it's interesting. I think the landmarks, I see them as, I mean, number one, there may not be as much emphasis long term on any one of them because they don't change hands. You
Hmm.
acquire it once, and then that's it. So I see it kind of being a decent, badge income driver, but I see it more as like a nice to have kind of trophy, if you will.
Hmm.
My take on it would be is that I actually sent in a request, to the management team, and I said, "Look, I know you guys don't embrace crypto, and mind you, I was
Hmm.
actually interested in the app initially because I thought, okay, well, I'm a big crypto guy. I see this option for a payout and
Hmm.
probably USDC. Like that would be good to have, by the way. I
Hmm.
thought that crypto would be the direction. Crypto's not the direction that they want to go in, and that's okay. They don't want to be like upland, which
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
lost a lot of gusto behind it. But I think at least the landmarks are perfect for an NFT collection.
Hmm.
So the thing that I felt really near and dear to is it could have been something that the NFTs could have been a collection of artists. Like artists could
Okay.
have
Yeah.
submitted their own unique creations, not the
Yeah.
the the Atlas Earth like works themselves. I get it; it has
Hmm.
to fit within the app, but it's like
Yeah.
it could have been something that, hey, you not only do you win this, this landmark, and now you are entitled to that badge income, but create a whole collection of this, and you taper it in. You only provide an NFT for every single landmark that launches. You don't launch it all at once. But the
Hmm.
the factor, what I was trying to emphasize was that it creates a secondary market in the NFT world without the company being involved in crypto. So people will want to kind of trade or sell or buy some of these items. It
Hmm.
kind of goes hand in hand with like the gentleman's agreements that happen, like
Yeah.
me not taking Brooklyn, or hey, Blue Cross. I let Blue Cross and I kind of were talking about Austin, and congrats to Blue Cross there for that.
Mm.
But it would have been something like, hey, if I had the what is that, the Millennium Bridge landmark in Austin, if that's going to be a
Mhm.
place, like maybe I'd say, okay, like it could have been something that a player could have. Maybe there's a value exchanged. I don't know. Maybe there's Atlas bucks if you can sell it. I mean, you'd have to talk about introducing selling parcels and landmarks again if it was
Yeah.
something that they wanted to do.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. I guess another good way to end this talk is what advice would you give to new players?
Yeah, yeah. Take it slowly. I think I think it's really easy to get caught up in emotional decisions with this, especially, you start to think about, oh, hey, I could be the mayor of my local town, or I could be the governor of a certain, state. Think about the economics of it. Is it going to be worth what you're getting in response? Like, you
Hmm.
know, that some cities are overvalued. There
Hmm.
are some places that are super high. Like San Francisco is a small part of the peninsula itself, but it's like I think it's like Crispy Fries, I think that's his name, has it at something like 13,000 parcels. Well, I'm never touching that. I'm never going there because it's number one, it's a small footprint, but it's way overpriced. Like the guy has locked that down. Or Town
Hmm.
and Country, Florida, for example, which is at something like 12,000 parcels. So there's some places that don't make sense. You need to have a clear strategy, have clear expectations. Like this is the money I want to spend. This is what I'm thinking I can get back. Um, And I think there's one thing that we don't talk about a lot, that I would definitely emphasize is that personal safety has to come first. Um, there have been, I think, when you hear some of the stories from some folks, like they don't really, bubble up into like the social platforms, but this game takes a lot of time. Like people
Hmm.
are for the most part either, if they're in Europe, in most cases, you're sitting out in like a plaza somewhere and you're at a cafe and I'm going to buy 200 parcels here or something. Great. Well, there are crimes of opportunity. People watch
Hmm.
when you sit somewhere for a really long time. They wait to see, well, okay, maybe he's going to look the other way or grab something out of his bag, and boom, your phone's gone.
Hmm.
Or worse, like personal, you could be mugged. You could be. So I have to say, I don't think people talk about this enough because I've had a few incidences where I did not feel safe. I've had places where I was out late at night. In Bridgeport, Connecticut, I had the police canvass my car like 3 times. You know,
Hmm.
I had to show the app. I'm like, hey, I'm on a GPS app, guys. Like everything's fine. I'm not here. I'm not doing anything nefarious. Um, and then I was in the Bronx, and then I had an interesting encounter with working ladies of the night not knocking on my door. So you know you really anyway, but hey, it could be worse. So you
Hmm.
really look out. Don't stay in one place too long. If it's at night, try to be in a cafe indoors or a hotel room, or just stay safe.
Hmm.
I really mean that because there's other things. There's even people, staying anonymous is another thing too. People take this seriously. They put a lot of money into the app, and for some people that you don't know what losing a mayorship or something could mean to them. So I
Hmm.
mean, there's things incidences between players that don't get talked about, and they shouldn't be. But just try to stay anonymous. Don't necessarily reveal everything about who you are and where you are, just for your personal safety.
Hmm. Those are some very good points. But once again, thanks for joining me. Anything you want to say in wrap up before we go ahead and end this conversation?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Look, just I remain a very passionate, and huge fan of the platform here, and I hope my perspectives can be helpful here. I'm here for many years to come to see this platform continue to grow. And I've met a lot of awesome people along the way. I'm getting to know them more. I only kind of they know who I am personally just over time. Not as the King of Queens, but actually in person.
Hmm.
So Shaman 15, it's a classic example of you had an opponent or foe in the game turned into a really great friend and a potential business partner like that. But other folks, I'd say the same thing too. I mean, I talk to them very, very frequently. It's like, we're all daily chatting. Count Max, Lebert, the Prime Minister of President of France, Arn, Stone, Shane, Midnight down in Texas, helping me with Texas, that is. Blue Cross always keeps it interesting. Again, congrats on Austin and Travis County. You got me there. Pandora, we all know Pandora, Empress of Japan, and she's the OG Queen of Queens, by the way. She created a whole thing which was kind of funny years ago. Rainbow, of course, you got to keep it extra ultra, but I was going to say, watch out for the Germans, they're on your heels. Mr. Everything, you got to keep Atlanta and the airport locked down, and you got to always get those numbers up. Us whales are looking out for them. It's funny, the socials have been a lot of fun. There's Terry in Dallas. I don't know her screen name or so, but she's my alleged Atlas wife on Facebook. So we joke about her picking me up at DFW, which is like a god awful airport, by the way. It's so
Hmm.
freaking huge. Um, there's Smokey in Germany. Schöne Grüße an euch alle. I'm German American, so I have a soft spot for the German community here. The Rock of Brooklyn, of course. Um, Mark Cuban, I know he's back. He took over Italy. Now we're kind of going neck and neck about LA, but nothing personal. We keep friendly, and it's all in good competition. Yeah, Joe Fish, Joe Fish and I also same thing. We got to know each other a lot more. He just took over New Jersey, so I wanted to congratulate him there. Um, and then of course, like last but not least here, Annalisa. Annalise has been awesome to the community. She's a total rock star. I mean, she works her butt off. And I made a funny suggestion to her. I said, you know what? You need a raise and you need a vacation somewhere to a foreign country where there's no cell access, no Wi-Fi, no ability to interact with everybody. I said, and you know what? You relax. Like, she is awesome. So
Yeah.
Annalise has been such an awesome member there. But I know this is long-winded. Pharaoh Silver is also incredible. But Bronze Dragon, thank you so much here for putting this all together. I know, like, so this is really all volunteer work here, and you provide such a service to the community. So thank you for everything that you do here. You keep everybody engaged and included here.
Well, thanks for joining me. Thanks for spending the time preparing for this and answering a lot of questions that people had about being president of the United States and top dog in the game. So this has been Bronze Dragon and the King of Queens. Thanks for joining us. As always, if you like this kind of content, please put a like on the video as well as subscribe to the channel and think about becoming a member to support my further endeavors in this. Otherwise, once again, this has been Bronze Dragon and King of Queens, and we'll see you in Atlas Earth.